So we have a little bit of time. And so I'll just speak from my heart, and hopefully what comes out of my heart will go into yours. So first, just a little bit about me. My English is pretty good, but I'm not American. My grandfather walked from Russia to Israel in 1916 when he was 15 years old. How many people here are 15 or younger? No one. How many people here are older than 15? All right, so around that age, right? It's 15 to 18. So it's like a group of guys from about 15 to 20 years old. And like just not even 20 of them. And they walked for a year and a half. It took them a year and a half to get to Israel. And eventually they arrived in Israel. And for the first couple of years, my grandfather planted eucalyptus trees all around the north to dry the swamps all around the Kinneret. My father was born in Jerusalem. And when he finished his IDF service, his mother wanted him to become a doctor. There was only one medical school in Israel at the time. And in my family, I went to law school. In my family, you're either a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure. That's the way it works. I'm like, Ima, I want to be a farmer. And they're like, a farmer? What the heck? But so today I've broken the tradition, and now I'm starting a farm. But his mother wanted him to be a doctor, so he got on the last boat to leave Israel. At that time, they still traveled in boats in 1960. And he arrived in New York at the time, with the hopes of getting into medical school over there. He didn't have much money. He had about $500 in his pocket, and he bought the Webster's Guide to College Campuses in America. And it cost him like a nickel. And he went through the whole Webster's Guide. And when I went to law school, I wanted to know who the professors were, the job opportunities, the reputation of that college. My father had one criteria. He wanted to find the cheapest college in America, because he didn't have any money. And he found that the cheapest college in America was in this small little town in the middle of the Bible Belt in Louisiana. And so my father got on a bus, ended up in this little college, knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'd like to come to your school and possibly, hopefully from here, get into medical school." And they said, "Sure, no problem." And they let him in. It was really like a beautiful thing. And my father at that time didn't know much English, and until today he's got 16 grandchildren. He works until late hours of the night. My father is just like a workhorse of a man. And so, we still have his textbooks. And over every 3 or 4 words in English is a Hebrew word written in pen. So if you can imagine, he sat, not with Google, with a dictionary, page after page, textbook after translating all the textbooks that he had, never mind studying for the test, just to understand the words in order to then study for the test. So he was putting in 16 hours a day, 17 hours a day of studying. And it was one fateful Saturday night. His friends came up to him and they said, "Hey, listen, why don't you come out to the game tonight?" And my dad said, "Wow, games, I love games. What games are we going to play?" And they said, "No, silly Jew from Israel, we're not going to play a game. The college team has a football game tonight." And my dad said, "Football? I love football. I was so busy playing football in high school, I had to get on a boat to come here to begin with. I love football." Because in Hebrew, kaduregel is translated as football, but in Hebrew that is soccer. In America, when they say football, that's something totally different. So my father goes to the stadium expecting to see a soccer game, and then this is how he sees these big, ugly American helmets and pads killing each other on the field, and my dad's like, "What did America do to soccer? What is this?" And he's trying to figure out this new football game, and he looks very closely, and then he sees at one point they keep this egg-shaped ball through this big H, and the crowd went wild. And they're looking at my dad, looking at them and saying, "Well, I don't know much about this new football game, but I want you to know, I could kick that little egg through that big H. It's really not a big deal." He said, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Listen, I've been playing a different kind of football in Israel, and let me tell you, that little ball through that big H, I can do that any day of the week." He said, "Well, could you show us?" And he said, "Sure." So Sunday morning, they went down to the football field, and this is something that you can easily research. Google, YouTube, every single kicker in the United States of America, in the NFL and in college, used to kick a football like this. That's a ridiculous way to kick a ball. They would wear these funny shoes where they would shave off the toes so the ball would go straight. And my father went with him and was like, "I want you to know this is the way I kick a ball." And he stood at it like a soccer ball, like they do today. And he swung at it like you're supposed to. And the ball went right through. And they looked at this Jew from Israel kicking a ball. They'd never seen anyone like that, because the Bible Belt in America, football is more important than God. And they'd never seen anyone kick a football like that before. So they're like, "All right, that had to have been luck. Let's put the ball on the 25-yard line. Let's see what this guy can do." At the 25-yard line, my father swings at it and went right through. And they're like, "What's going on here?" They put the ball on the 30-yard line. And my father swung at it and it went right through. And eventually my dad's looking at them. He's like, "Guys, I want you to know there's no goalie here. That's it. In soccer, there's someone trying to stop me. I just have to kick the ball as far as I want, as high as I want. There's no one trying to stop me. And these guys are getting so excited. Like, oh my gosh, we've never seen a kick a football like that before. This is amazing. They put the ball on the 30-yard line, the 40, at the 45-yard line when my father didn't miss. 45 yards. I mean, for those of you that are football fans, that is a professional football. That's like serious. And they've never seen anyone kick a football like that before. And so I don't know if this really happened. I just can tell you this is the way my father tells me this part of the story. That at this part, a hush came over the field. And these people from the Bible Belt looked at my dad and looked at each other, and they said, we have a secret weapon from Israel. And now the kicker is usually not like the star of the team. It's only 3 points. A touchdown is 7 points. But this team that was on the college was such a small football team. They were so bad, they could never really get it in the end zone. So the entire strategy of the team became, okay, let's make it halfway down the field and let my father kick a field goal. And my father became the high scorer on the football team. He was so good in football that he got a full football scholarship to Oklahoma University. He was so good, he was drafted to the Chicago Bears spring training. And then he's like, oh my gosh, my mother is going to kill me. I can't be a football player. I mean, there's not even a goalie in this game. I got to be a doctor. So in the end, he never made it pro. Oh, thank you very much. He never made it to the pros, but it was him and another Hungarian guy at the time. I forgot the Hungarian guy's name. Google it. Yarovsky or something like that. That introduced European soccer-style kicking to American football. And because the Hungarian guy, he did go pro, he's in the Hall of Fame and no one even knows about my dad. Anyway, the goal of my father over there was to eventually get the medical degree and then come back to Israel and heal the sick in the Holy Land. It was beautiful. His father walked for a year and a half to get here. He wasn't just going to forget about Israel, the dream of the Jewish people, but the dream of the Jewish people took almost a second seat to the awesome life of Atlanta, Georgia. Life in Atlanta was amazing. He had a beautiful home and a wonderful car and a great job and an amazing career ahead of him. And year after year, he kept on thinking, maybe we'll move back to Israel. But my father got stuck in America for 20 years. And it was in 1991. There was the Gulf War at that time where Iraq invaded Kuwait and America got involved. And who knows, it might have been like a world war at that point. No one really knew. And in the middle of university, my two older brothers, Daniel and Micah, left university and made Aliyah in the middle of the war. All flights to Israel were canceled except for El Al flights. They got on one of the only El Al flights that had any room. They moved to Israel in the middle of the war, and they've been here pretty much ever since. I was 10 years old at that time, and then right after the war, my parents looked around and saw that their two oldest were in Israel, and they're like, well, we got stuck here quite a long time. I guess it's time for us to move back. And so I moved back to Israel in 1991, and I've been here ever since. So I went to high school here, I went to law school here, served in the military here, and I've been here really ever since. So although my English is quite good because I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, my roots are here, my life is here, my wife is here, my family is here. So I'm far more Israeli than I am American. But here's where I am now. So the reason why I told you that story is, first of all, because that's a cool story about my father. In the football, people should know that story. The other reason why I told you that story is because that is a microcosm, a little bit of the story of the Jewish return to the land of Israel. What do I mean by that? My grandfather came from a Jewish home, an Orthodox Jewish home. Keeping kosher as you walk for a year and a half across the plains of Russia wasn't very realistic. And you just kind of said, all right, the whole Torah thing, Lord have mercy. Here, give this to you, just turn that off. So my grandfather became a secular Zionist, and he joined Kibbutz Degalim. Kibbutz Degalim was the first kibbutz established in Israel. And, my grandfather didn't participate in this element of Kibbutz Degalim, but Kibbutz Degalim on Yom Kippur used to have pork barbecues on the beach of the Kinneret, just to stick it to God. It was like an anti-religious movement at the beginning of Zionism. And when my family came back, it was a totally different reality. My grandfather was running away from Europe. He was running away from anti-Semitism, running away from hatred. He was running away from what would be the Holocaust just a few years later. When my family came back from Atlanta, Georgia in 1991, we were running away from Atlanta. Life in America was amazing. We were running to Israel. This time not as secular Zionists, but as religious Zionists. With like a vision, with a destiny, with a sense of purpose, with a mission to help Israel. If Israel's under attack, my brothers left New York University and moved to Israel. And that's a totally different kind of Zionism. And in fact, that really is the movement that's happening today. No one anymore, I don't think, it's very rare, people aren't running away from Australia or running away from the United States. The people that are moving to Israel, they have it inside them. It's a sense of destiny. They feel like a connection to this place, like, oh my God, I'm at home. I don't know if you're from Sydney or if you're Johannesburg or from the United States. That's not your home. Christmas comes around, you guys are weirdos. You feel uncomfortable there. I remember growing up in Atlanta. In my home, I called my parents Abba and Ima, because that's what I called them. When I went out to like the mall or whatever, I always called them Mom and Dad. I don't want to be weird. I put on a baseball hat and a yarmulke. It's like a minority. You're like an uncomfortable minority, and that's the way kids grow up. And all of a sudden, my kids growing up here, Hebrew is their mother tongue. They don't even know what it is to be a minority. They're so confident. They're like already thinking about serving in the first military, organized military, since the times of King David. It's a totally different reality here. It's a different Jewish life here. And so I think that's the transition of what Yom Yerushalayim is really all about. It's kind of reminding us, what's going on here in Israel. When my grandfather first came here, there were 60,000 Jews in Israel. That's it. Today there's well over 6 million. There was one asphalt road at the beginning of the state that connected Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and even that wasn't so complete. There have been more infrastructure and roads created in the last 70 years than in any country in the world. The explosion in population, unprecedented. I asked my father, the prophet Zephaniah says that the Hebrew language would be resurrected from the dead. That never happened before in human history. 80 years ago, Hebrew was like Latin. No one spoke Hebrew. And I asked my dad, I'm like, Abba, how did it happen that the Hebrew language was just resurrected from the dead? How did that happen in your generation? How did that come to be? And he's like, well, listen, your grandfather had to speak to me in a language that he didn't really know, in a language that didn't really exist, and then hope that everyone in the country would do the same irrational thing. And everyone did the same irrational thing. And in one generation, the Hebrew language came to life again. When I first got here, I remember Atlanta Hebrew was so foreign to me. It was like the stuff that we mumble through and we daven in the morning, like, I don't understand what I'm saying, there's like words there. And I remember going to Israel at like a really young age, and I saw the Coca-Cola insignia in Hebrew. And it's got the whole wavy things, and I'm like, what the heck? Like this old, ancient language is on a Coke can now. And I remember I was like, what? It's like something marvelous is going on here. And it's like hard to put into words. For 2,000 years, we've been like praying to come back to Jerusalem and rebuild this country, and now we're actually here. What do we do with that? And it's not easy to be here. All of this time, it's like this special time. It's like these new holidays that Israel is celebrating. Like we're so used to celebrating Hanukkah and Purim. All of a sudden, there's like Yom HaShoah. And we're like, wow, that's a heavy day in Israel. And it's like, wow, that's the price, There's a price to pay for being in Israel. There's terror, there's the Hamas. And then there's always this Yom HaShoah day that's the reminder of the price we pay when we don't have Israel. And Yom Yerushalayim, though, is so much more than that, 1948, we really celebrate our freedom. It's like we're free. We finally made it. We're free from foreign rule. We're in our own land. We're independent. That's awesome. That really needs a Yom HaAtzmaut celebration. But Yom Yerushalayim is something different. What are we celebrating here? Jerusalem isn't just about our independence and our freedom. It's like we never gave up on the dream. The Jewish people have a dream. All of us, inside us, we have a dream. And it's like Jerusalem represents that dream. And we never gave up on the dream. And the dream is coming closer and closer to reality. Israel today is the strongest economy in the Middle East. One of the strongest currencies in the world. It's definitely the most powerful military in the Middle East. From what? Think about where we were 75 years ago in Auschwitz. And think about the fact that we have the strongest military in the Middle East and one of the strongest economies in the world. It's just unbelievable. But that's not enough. Jerusalem represents so much more than that. It's like we're here for a purpose and a mission. The Jewish people are here to letaken olam. Right? Everyone knows that. If you ask a Haredi in Bnei Brak, what's the purpose of being a Jew? They'll say letaken olam. If you ask a Reformed Jew in California, they'll say, what's the purpose of being a Jew? Letaken olam. Now, both of those tikkun olam, they both look pretty different, but it's like the heart of the Jewish people. But what is the full sentence? It's letaken olam b'malchut Shaddai. We need a kingdom. We need a country. Because one Jew, maybe you can save a whale. One Jew can save a few whales. One Jew can save a small portion of a rainforest. You want to change the world? You need a country. You want to change the whole thing. We want to change the whole world. The ecology, the environment, poverty, sickness. I mean, here's what I think about. I think about my grandfather's name was Mordechai. He walked here when he was 15. The last person we know on our family tree is my grandfather's grandfather. His name was Zev. And sometimes I can play this game, especially when I'm in the airport. I haven't left Israel in a few years since I started this farm. But the last time that I was in the airport, I had this dream of being like, man, imagine if somehow I could bring Zev from Bialystok to Ben Gurion Airport. What the heck would he think of himself there? I mean, I've been invited to speak literally almost every continent in the world. I've been to Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all over the United States. Ben Gurion Airport is literally the nicest airport in the world. There's no better than LA, better than JFK. I mean, it's better than all of them. And imagine the Zev, this Jew, my grandfather's grandfather, arriving in Ben Gurion Airport. And he goes through the passport control, and then he gets on a moving sidewalk. And he's like, wow! Look at this thing, the sidewalk is moving! That would be his first thing, what is going on there? And then on this moving sidewalk, as you go to the waiting area where you wait for your flight, on the side of the wall, the last time I was there, it had all of Israel's Nobel Prize winners and the innovations that they created. And it's like astrophysics and game theory and drip irrigation technologies and all of these amazing technologies that Israel has developed. And he's going down this moving sidewalk looking at what's going on, what this little country has developed, how they're actually fixing the entire world. And then he would see a black Jew from Ethiopia right next to him, and then a big, tall, blonde Jew from Russia with blue eyes, and then a brown Jew from Morocco. He'd be like, what is going on? Everyone's speaking Hebrew. My grandfather and great-grandfather didn't speak Hebrew, he spoke Yiddish. And everyone now is speaking Hebrew, and then he sees Japanese tourists and Chinese tourists that are buying up everything in Israel. The Chinese people have bought up so much of Israel's economy. It's like unbelievable. All these tourists from all over the world. And my grandfather's like stunned. And then he sees a soldier walking towards him. And I know that my grandfather goes, oh my God, there's a soldier. Because if a Jew in Bialystok saw a soldier 300 years ago, it was usually bad news for the Jews. But then as the soldier turns to his side, he sees on the side here, there's this 2 blue striped pad with a Jewish star. I just have no question my grandfather's grandfather would be like, okay, where is he? I'd be like, where is he? He'd say, where's Mashiach? I mean, he must have come here. I mean, look at this place. Are you kidding me? It's like the Jewish dream is manifest. But now it's like, oh, it's like we're already here. But it's like all of our dreams, all of the promises. It's like we are, if you think about it, it's such a crazy idea. 2,000 years the Jewish people have been praying for everything we're doing right now. As we're about to go dance through the streets of Jerusalem, we are literally the living embodiment of thousands of years of our fathers and their fathers' prayers. We are the answer. Hashem answered them through us. We are the answer to all of those prayers. It's freaking unbelievable. And we just get to be here now and just enjoy it. We get to celebrate it and live it up. And I'm telling you, guys are like looking out for boys and girls to get married. There are so many good-looking boys and girls to get married to in Israel. Everyone's Jewish. You don't need to be worried. It's like unbelievable. You want to get married, you come to Israel. This is the place to find your Mashiach. Let me tell you, I mean, one of my best friends, his name is Yossi. He was served in the Navy SEALs. He's one of the founders of our farm. The guy is like tough, strong. He doesn't speak a word of English, even though both of his parents are American, but he's fluent in Arabic. And I'm like looking at this Jew that looked like he crawled out of a Bible. And I'm like, they just don't make Jews like that in Brooklyn. I mean, look at this guy. Like something is happening here that it's like this ancient Judean is coming to be. But it's like old, but it's very new. And then we think about it, it's like Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Renew our days as of old. And it's like we're living through it right now. And so, that's a lot, you know? All right. I was given a short time frame here. I want to just tell you 2 short things. Do you guys know who Martin Luther King Jr. is? So because I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, he was a big part of my childhood that I remember because he was from Atlanta.
And he was the leader of the civil rights movement in the United States of America. He was like the guy who organized the marches in Alabama fighting for black rights in America. And he was assassinated eventually. But the last speech that he gave before he was assassinated was something along the lines of this. We've broken the bondages of slavery. We've traveled through the desert. I've climbed the mountain top and peered into the promised land. And I'm listening to this man's speech, and I'm thinking, that's our story. We broke through the bondages of Pharaoh. We've traveled through the desert for 40 years. Moshe Rabbeinu went up to the mountain and looked into the promised land. Are you kidding me? The story of the Jewish people inspired the civil rights movement in America to bring equality to all people. Just a few years ago, the Dalai Lama sent a delegation of students here to Israel, and they asked me to speak to this group of Tibetans. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I can speak to B'nai Akiva kids, but I get to speak to Dalai Lama Tibetan monks? That's awesome. And I'm like, well, what? I don't know, what do I say to these Buddhists? I don't even know how to relate to them. They're bald, they wear orange, like, I don't even know what I'm going to say to them. And I needed to get a little bit more information. I'm like, okay, so just why do they want to hear from us? What are they coming to Israel for? What is this about? And so I was sent a message back saying that Tibet lost their freedom. China invaded Tibet, and the Tibetans lost their freedom. And now they live sort of under this Chinese occupation. It's ironic because the whole world, the Israeli occupation, everyone talks about all the politics of Israel. It's like, hello, it's like really bad things happening over there in China. No one cares about that. Anyway, they came to Israel. And the Dalai Lama said they wanted to send them to meet the Jews. That the Jewish people lost their freedom, they lost their land. But for 2,000 years, they never gave up their hope. And now they made it back. And I want them to be inspired by the Jewish people. And I think to myself, man, the Jewish people's story changed the world in the past. It continues to change the world today. And all of us are just part of that marvelous story. Because everyone knows that, like, on the inside of the inside, the Jewish people's story is literally the greatest story humanity has ever told. No one has ever saw anything like the story of our people. And now, as the story is like unfolding, this is the finest chapter. The modern state of Israel, if we had any time in world history to choose to be alive, we could have chosen to be a Jew in any other generation. I think if you think about it, right now is literally the best time to be alive. Never has it been this awesome. Never has it been this exciting. Never has it been this hopeful. We are like about to change the entire world. And it's our generation's opportunity to really like play our role. I mean, that's really the whole message of the Tanakh. I know that in Chutz La'aretz, Tanakh isn't studied so much. They like to study a lot of Gemara and a lot of that stuff. But the prophets, it's like, I didn't study that much, so much. But the question is, like, why is the Torah a story to begin with? If it's about the mitzvahs, it should just look like the Shulchan Aruch or the Ten Commandments or just longer. Tell us what to do and just get it over with. But that's not the way the Torah is written. The whole thing is a story. You know, Adam and Chava, Noah, and the Mabul, and there's Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They go down to Egypt. They come out of Egypt. They're in Israel. Then the Tanakh continues. Yoshua goes in, conquers the land. Then they build the Beit HaMikdash, Shlomo HaMelech. Then the kingdom is split. Nebuchadnezzar comes and he destroys the temple. Ezra and Nehemiah come back. The whole Tanakh is a story. Why is that? It's to teach us like a way. It's like such a marvelous like way of giving us over the way to see the world. The story isn't finished yet. That's why the Tanakh is a story. We are the next chapter in the Jewish story. And what that means for you is that you get to choose which character you want to play. Who do you want to be in this marvelous story that's unfolding? The rabbi that walked alongside Martin Luther King, his name was Abraham Joshua Heschel. There's a real famous picture of him holding a Torah scroll right next to this black pastor. And they're walking together, and I thought that was like a cool thing to see. The Jewish people like bringing it, you know? And before he died, he left one marvelous sentence that until today I carry with me. And he says, remember, above all else, build your life as though it were a work of art. I'm like, that is just the greatest advice in the world. Because if all of us are characters in the unfolding story of the Jewish people, all of us get to author our own story. We get to make it not just a work of art, make your life a masterpiece. Don't go back to the countries in which you live and just get lost over there. Make Aliyah, join the army, make it happen. Come to the army and then go back to your country. But at least participate, you know what I'm saying? Join Shirit Leumi. That's going to be amazing. You want to go back to your country? That's a resume builder. Oh, by the way, I want you to know, I served as an officer in the most respected military in the world. That's a good way to get a job. But at least you would have had that in your life experience. I mean, you're going to be an accountant or a lawyer for the rest of your life until you die. This time is never coming back. Take advantage of it. Just come here. Be here as much as you can. And if you go back, fine. But then take part in the story there. You can be a part of the Jewish story in Australia or in America or in Johannesburg. But that's really the calling. How are you going to author your story and make it a work of art? And so Yom Yerushalayim is here. It's like a reminder that inside all of us, like we have a dream. The Jewish people have a destiny, and our destiny is like unfolding before our eyes. But if the Jewish people have a destiny, what that means is that each and every one of us individually, we all have a destiny. And Yom Yerushalayim is to remind us to ask ourselves, what is my destiny? How do I live my best life? Because we only got one chance at this world. So let's really make it count. And as we dance through the streets of Yerushalayim, we like, touch the kotel. Just know that's not your hand touching the kotel. That's your mother's hand, your father's hand, their mothers, their fathers, their mothers, their fathers, their mothers, and their fathers, all the way back. It's like through the generations of history, we get to touch the kotel now. That's unbelievable. And so, I want to bless you guys that this be the best Yom Yerushalayim of your lives. And that this is just the beginning. Jerusalem has never, ever, ever been this big. Not in the times of King David, not in the times of King Solomon, not in the times of the Maccabees. This is the most marvelous Jerusalem so far the world has ever seen, and we're just getting started. And so, let's dance it up.